Hi, everyone. Welcome back and thanks for joining me today. We're going to be talking about a personal matter that I am going to share with you. When I first started my channel, the reason I did is because I had a particular background in metaphysics and esoterics, and I thought the information that I had on the LDS Church from that perspective would be valuable for those looking for information and answers. So it was never meant to be a long-term type of channel. All the other videos that I did on top of that, they were just extras. So when my husband and I decided to travel for a year, I had no problems walking away and we had a great time and that was fun. Many of you have since commented below asking where I'm at, what I'm doing, and inquiring as to whether or not I'm okay. I've had many emails over the years asking where I disappeared to and if I was okay. I tried to respond to everybody. If I didn't, I apologize. I meant to. But I appreciate everybody reaching out, those who did, making sure that I'm all right. What I'm going to share with you is a large reason of why I've been gone for so long, and that is the topic of suicide. I am very nervous to talk about this. In fact, I have actively tried to make this video for several days now. I have hit record many times and thrown it in the trash just because I couldn't get through the information. So I'm trying this again, and hopefully this is the one. You'll have to forgive me and be a little patient with me. January 8th, 2021. It was a Friday night. I got a call from my younger son, Jonah, which is unusual because he works second shift. So we always talk earlier in the day. And so when I saw his name on the phone, I immediately was concerned that something was wrong. And when I picked it up, it was not my younger son, it was his dad. So I said, "Where's Jonah? Is he okay?" And he said, "Yep, he's fine. He's right here next to me. But I'm calling about Mitchell." Mitchell's my older son. He's 3 years older than his brother. And what I'm going to tell you now is not because I remember it. It's because it's what I've been told by my husband. I have very little to no recollection of this conversation. So it goes something like this. My ex-husband said, "It's Mitchell and it's bad. He's gone and he did it himself." Have my box of tissues here. This came out of the blue. There were no indications that anything was wrong. He was always with his family, enjoyed being with us, enjoyed spending time with his friends. So I had no frame of reference for what was happening. And in fact, if my husband hadn't been standing next to me, I would have hit the ground. Every bit of energy that I had inside of me just flew out the bottom of my feet. I immediately felt drained. And as much as I work with individuals that are SRA survivors, have DID or dissociative personality disorder, identity disorder, I understand the concept of disassociation, but for the first time, I believe I experienced it while my husband was holding me up. I felt like I was right here outside of my body, watching and hearing the cries, hearing the reaction, but I felt completely removed from the situation. The trauma just hit me. That night is pretty much a blur as far as the details go. Later on in the evening, we were fortunate enough to get a note from Mitchell stating that he had had depression for 10 years and nobody knew it. Nobody knew. As I went back in my mind and I was thinking about the time frame, Mitchell had a bike accident, a very severe bike accident when he was not quite 16 and a half. I'm going to show you a picture actually. This is a photo that was taken the day after he was released from the hospital. He had a concussion. He was all scraped up road rash down his body. And we were very fortunate that somebody saw him have the accident and they were able to call 911 right away. So we did get medical attention immediately. But after that accident, things started to change for him. He was born with incredible spiritual gifts. BYU called me when he was a small child and wanted him to participate in a study they were doing, but I didn't allow it because I wanted him just to be a child. And I won't go into the particulars on that. But after the accident, those disappeared and it left him feeling very depressed. In fact, it was something at that time that we talked about for about 3 months. He was very open about feeling depressed and upset that these gifts that he had since birth were gone, and he felt like God was punishing him, which wasn't true. And we don't know for a fact that this bike accident had anything to do with the depression, but as I backtrack in the time period, I do recall that being within about 3 months of his bike accident. And so I don't think I can take that off the table as a contributing factor. After the initial 3 months of feeling depressed, he seemed to be okay. When we would talk about it, he said that he was fine. He wasn't experiencing depression. Life went on as usual. And he graduated from high school, went on to do his life. And there was never any mention of it again. So when January 8th came around, it was a shock. I had no frame of reference of where this was coming from, except for that time period. I'm going to take a drink. Suicide has become something that I have thrown myself into in terms of the studies. I went back to school for psychology, and I'm almost done with that, at least with my bachelor's. Looking at suicide, it is in the top 10 causes of death here in the United States. I think it's number 7. And in Utah, it is significantly higher. We're talking 60% higher than the national average. So it is a big problem, especially amongst young men in his age demographic. It is the highest cause of death. And I do believe it is something that needs to be addressed. And that was pre-COVID. I think it was 2019, the national average was approximately 45,000 deaths a year due to suicide, and that is higher since individuals have been isolated. Here in Washington State, they had a particularly stringent house arrest or lockdown policy, and that did not work out well for him. Being by himself 4 months on end. Well, he did live with his brother and his brother's girlfriend, but still being isolated, losing his job, having the company shut down as a result of the lockdowns did not help his cause. And so as I've spoken to individuals that have lost children or brothers, uncles, aunts, it is a type of grief that is different from other types of grief simply because of the stigma and the shame that is attached to it. His grandparents, his grandpa specifically, who spoke at the memorial, made a comment about how he believes that there will be great mercy for him. And that just tore my heart apart, simply because I don't believe in uh, the fact that he's going to be, according to the LDS religion, punished for this. He had extenuating circumstances, mental illness, whatever it looks like. I think there's great divine understanding and compassion, and I don't think judgment looks the way we've been taught that it looks. And what I noticed is that people just don't know what to say to me. They don't know how to respond. And so they do their best, especially within the belief systems that they have. And so I have found that it's incredibly interesting that despite the fact that I'm the one who's lost my child, I have to have great understanding and compassion for others who don't know how to respond. And even when they say little faux pas, I have to be very forgiving of that. And that's been taxing, I will say, because it's not meant with malice. I do understand that. There are great resources for those who have suicidal ideations. I am going to list them in the description box for the show notes. The Alliance of Hope, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. These are all great resources. If you have these thoughts, it is important for you to get help, to find support. It's not something that has to happen. This is a very, very permanent solution to a temporary issue. And I don't think that my son thought these things through in that way. I think he felt like he was completely out of hope and didn't have any other options. That's the reason why people do this. We were able to go back into his journal. He had an online journal. It wasn't an everyday thing. It was a periodic journal that he kept for many years. And what we found out is, as of December 9th, 2020, he had made the decision that he was going to take his life. In December of 2020, I spent 6 days on the road with him. He went on a welfare check for my dad to Arizona. So we spent time laughing, talking. He seemed fine. He showed me the face that he wanted me to see. And I didn't pick up on the fact that something was wrong. I think sometimes we see what we want to see, but hindsight is worth a lot, isn't it? I want to show you a picture of him without the scratches. Such a handsome young man. He loved his family and his friends. It's such a good soul, such a good spirit. I know it's very common for individuals to be angry at their loved ones for doing something like this, and I just have never been angry at him. I'm heartbroken. Heartbroken that for whatever reason he didn't feel like he could come to me or his brother or his dad. And that's a choice that can never be undone. I've always had an interest in near-death experiences, and that has picked up since his passing. One of the things that I have discovered about individuals who have attempted suicide and not crossed over, they were unsuccessful in their attempts, is that 100% of the time they have said that they're grateful to be here and that they're glad that their attempts fail. And part of me thinks that if he could do it all over again, he wouldn't, that he would realize that whatever was happening could be fixed. We could work it out. It was also discovered in his writings that he had had an abuse situation when he was younger, and he didn't tell anybody about it. My ex-husband and I were always very careful, or we felt like we were, about who was around our children. We never had one babysitter at a time. We always had two. So we were very aware of abuse situations and tried to take measures, but it turns out that this was an issue that was a neighborhood kid. We're not exactly sure. It's just from some of the things that he thinks he remembers as a small child. So there are too many unanswered questions. And I think that's part of the torture that goes along with surviving suicide, is that you have so many unanswered questions, you just don't know. And when you continue to think about those things and spend your mental energy on it, oftentimes these are questions that we're never going to have answers to, at least not here in this realm. Over the last not quite 2.5 years, my younger son, Jonah, who was the one who found his brother, we have had EMDR, which is the eye desensitization movement, repatterning. We have both done that in order to work with the trauma. It has provided a great deal of healing. We've done suicide walks. We've met with groups, me in particular, met with groups of people on many, many, many occasions, listening to those and being with those who have lost someone to suicide. There is a huge stigma attached with that, and a shame. That's hard to get over. It's hard to deal with, because people want to assume that you've done something or you didn't do something to prevent this. And that is probably something that comes deepest from within me than it does from anybody else. So I'm working on that. I'm actively working on that through prayer and meditation and other healing modalities. But it is something I am passionate about. I wanted you guys to understand where I've been, and that this is something that needs to be addressed. I'm not sure I want to go into anything further than that. I think I will probably wrap it up and hope that I don't change my mind about this. It is something that I think we need to hit straight on. Mental illness, in whatever form it takes, is something that has to change in the way we deal with individuals that are not thinking clearly. I think every one of us knows somebody. If it's not ourselves, it's somebody in our family, a colleague, a neighbor, a friend, who deals with depression or some sort of mental consideration. And we need to change the way we do things here, because this is something that is preventable. It's completely avoidable. So thank you guys. Please share this video. Please get this information out there. Most particularly the information that's in the description box. Be a kind friend. Don't be cruel to others. Don't be cruel to yourself. Thank you, everyone. Like and subscribe. I will see you in the next video, and take care of yourselves.